underneath that.
I make a motion to approve of the select board minutes from the meeting of January 22nd.
Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Glenn to approve the minutes of the meeting of January 22nd. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I make a further motion to approve of the select board minutes from January 29th.
Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Glenn to approve the minutes of the meeting of January 29th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I make another motion to approve the select board meeting minutes from the meeting of January 30th.
Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Glenn to approve the minutes of the meeting of January 30th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that is done. So the next item on the agenda is public comments. So if anyone has public comments not related to any other agenda item, now's your time. Or just,
Well, I just got this, so it's pretty sad that I haven't had time to study it, but there's places I'm in disagreement with, without, I'm pretty slow with this stuff. I don't know if there's a misunderstanding here or not, but there's a lot of zoning laws that are being violated. And that, you said yourself, is up to the zoning board, which are supposed to have public hearings according to the bylaw.
the zoning administrator. That's up to the zoning administrator,
To have a meeting,
not necessarily a meeting to make a rule.
right, which they did a few years back, and so you just can't, I mean, I had an attorney, and I'm here under his advice again, I wasn't gonna come again. And they made a decision which is not being followed. That's one of my main concerns, and I wanted clarification. I mean, getting pretty sick of coming here, and you're probably sick of seeing. And the forest warden on the other one, what's that here, and said you should implement some local laws. I realize the state's taken over, but it's not clear whether it's temporary or what. Or whether that's gonna stand. So I think maybe you don't understand what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to go back on something that was already done, find out why it wasn't enforced, and see, under the advice, Todd said, this is a zoning issue. What we can do about the, no burning in a residential area, like other towns have, unless the select board can have them implement that. Very simple, isn't it? And there's nothing going on right now, but there was improved from September until the middle of November. I don't give a crap about the funds, use my language, that's up to you. I'm just trying to protect my property.
What was happening from September to November?
I have, well, it's been happening since the permit was induced, but I have pictures with dates, which I was asked to get by the board and by the administrator. She was all ready to do something until the town administrator stopped her from doing it, and that's her words. They're friends, whatever, you can slice it however you want, but I have pictures with dates of a business being run. And like I said, as long as it's stopped now and it doesn't start again, touche.
My understanding is it's stopped. Is that not correct?
I will not be making any comment on this because of the allegations that associated with my office. Part of this, I will be making no further comment on this.
Okay, so my
the-
understanding is that, the landowner in question applied for a permit to run a commercial operation there, the wood processing, and the permit was denied. So he does not have a permit to operate a commercial operation. So
Is that your understanding?
that,
He does not.
he does not, yes. So the question is whatever activity is going on there operating a commercial wood processing operation from that site? And I don't know if it is or not. I mean, my understanding, he's been trucking things in and, making piles and things like that, but not burning as of this time. So I don't know if the mere storage of the material as part of his business, because it's not coming from the site, it's coming in from the site. I don't know. It's coming from off-site. So if that's part of his commercial operation, I don't know if that violates the fact that he has no permit to run a commercial operation there. I don't know. Is that a summary of where we are in terms of the past?
Yes.
Yes. So I would like to see a written comment from the zoning administrator as to whether or not that constitutes a violation. I mean, that would be something that I would think would be good. in writing, so that then we have a chance to say, why is it not? I don't know if it is or not, just storing wood there. I don't know if it is. And then if it is, then there's a question of, are there fines? And if it isn't, then we go along as we are. I don't know.
If he's in compliance with everything that's supposed to be doing now, I know at one point he probably wasn't, and that's when we first came in, right?
Yep.
And then I don't think there's been any activity other than maybe him hauling in brush. I drove by there today and I saw some brush, but I don't know.
There hasn't
I
been
saw-
much activity since.
But there's piles of logs. The
November.
logs are still
Yeah,
there.
and there's piles ready to burn, which is
That's
a
what I saw, was
concern.
the piles of
Right.
brush.
Right.
So on that note, he was told he cannot burn unless he goes to Agency of Natural Resources and gets a permit from them first.
Right. I did know that.
The same
Is it
as another-
temporary or?
Same as another company in town.
I know.
So that's what I was advised by A&R, is to have the owner notify them first. They have to get a permit approved from the A&R before anything local can happen.
Right.
As Lars told you once before, or when he was here that night, if he doesn't, when there's snow on the ground, he doesn't even need a permit from us. But he will need the permit from A&R.
So I
Even
did
if
that.
there's snow on it.
If there's snow on the ground, yes.
I was up in the
Yeah.
air whether this was temporary or what.
Yeah.
And
I don't know what the terms of the A&R permit are. That's above me. That's straight from Agency of Natural
when I
Resources.
talk to them, it goes on a case by case.
Yep.
Which makes sense.
Yep, but, I did get a notice from, Nate's
Right,
about a permit being issued.
right.
I have not gotten anything from your neighbor.
Well, like I said, there's nothing going on there right now, but the threat of it, and I'm just trying to protect myself. That's all. And get out in front of this thing, so if it stays like it is now, that's one thing. There's been some things that just didn't jive, and I haven't talked to her in a while, but I don't think she understood completely, and I'm just trying to stand up.
And in terms of a local ordinance, what was that? A local ordinance, controlling burning at all times of the year? Was that the idea? Or,
I remember him being.
I
We
remember.
talked about it, and Lars
Yeah, Lars-
was in on it.
Right.
Other towns have no commercial burning in the residential area where it's a hazard and everything. And there's, there's
and I would
things,
have to define that very carefully.
It would,
Notably, I
we
will
don't
do
have
a
that over.
as a point of clarification, the rural zone, the R zone, which is often referred to as quote unquote the residential zone, is actually R zoning for the least dense area of town. As you see, it's all the white on the map.
Right, but there's still the question of how far away are the residences? And I think,
Yeah.
so you could be out in the least densely settled area, and you could have houses right next to you, so.
But Mr. Woodard seems to be referring to the kind of ordinances that are meant to
For village.
control
Village.
burning
Yes.
inside of
Yes.
village
Yes,
centers and various.
so, that's a whole other question. I'm not averse to looking into that and what that would mean and how would you define, where is rural, what is not rural? And again, I think the key thing is the proximity of other people.
And
Because en Route 7, there's the question of traffic safety, but there's also the question of there are many people who have compromised lung function, and burning smoke of any kind is not a good thing for them. So at what point do you try to regulate that? And I don't know the answer. So I'm certainly willing to look into that at some point, but not while we're getting ready for town meeting.
Right.
So I think we should come back to that and look into it, and you should monitor what's going on. And I would ask for something in writing from the zoning administrator if it was me.
And how do we go about that?
Dan,
Ask
can
her
you
for
make,
something in
can
writing.
I will,
can you make that request of her?
I will make that request of,
Joan,
nice.
Anita?
John.
I'd just like to make another point in the zoning.
Go ahead.
When the permit was denied, there was a lot of bullets in that red book that were the residents wouldn't like. There was other residents there at the time, more than just the zoning laws. And there is a zoning law that says rural residential is the purpose is to remain the natural. It's in the book bylaws. I won't have it word by word and protect the residents, which is when the things are going on there, it's not, I spent a year in Iraq with the burn pits and stuff, and we talk about floods and stuff, and I live with that in my front yard. That's just the way I'm
That's the
coming
issue.
from. Sorry.
That's the issue. To be continued.
Okay, I will get a hold of her and have her put something in writing as to what.
Whether
further
the
than
current activity
violates
violates
any zoning.
the absence of permit, that it has no permit,
Right.
the storage and the trucking in and out, which is right now is what's going on.
No, the burning kind of separate from that.
The burning's kind of separate from that.
Mhm. Thank you.
But if he was burning, that would be part of his commercial
Yeah.
activity.
Of course. All right, any other public comment? From anyone? Okay.
So we have no liquor licenses on the agenda for the
Thanks, guys.
next item.
Thanks for coming in. So under new business, 5.1 is liquor license, there are none, so even though it's on the agenda, we are scratching that one. And 5.2 is fire chief, appointment or election confirmation. What are we?
Let's push that until after.
Yeah,
until
let's do
later in the
that,
meeting, Until after the
That's
executive
right, we
session.
want to do that after executive session, I think. So the next thing is 5.3, the ARPA update.
Spreadsheet time.
You have information on that?
I will be sharing my screen momentarily.
All right, give us a
Okay.
second. We'll-
Okay, so this is the spreadsheet that Jamie and Glenn and I have pieced together for the ARPA conversation. So this is what the current standing tentative plan is for ARPA. I can also send this to you. Send me an email one or before I get later. Does either board members want to talk about this? You get prerogative before I dive in.
So we were trying to basically allocate everything that we could right now. The extrication tools have already been purchased, the wastewater study is underway. The excavator, that's the one that we asked Mark to look for and keep his eyes out for on a larger excavator. The hydrants is something that we kind of changed on our last meeting to add those in because there are a number of them that are having issues. So we
Like
felt that
leaking or freezing or those kinds of things, pressure.
completely broke.
Oh, that would do it,
Yeah.
yep.
Yep.
Okay,
This was
completely
like-
broke.
Yeah, we're 10%.
Yep.
There's
The
no
true
doubt.
end of its
There's like
useful
30
life.
That would be
Yeah.
called depreciation, I think.
Right.
Physical depreciation. Okay.
Yes.
Real bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. The engineering and hydrology, that's underway already.
Bidding.
Yep. South Road compliance.
So here's a caveat on this. This one, we don't want to award / plan for / put out to bid until later in the year because we may be able to get a preferential rate loan on this that lets us reallocate this money potentially to the water department through another way. So that one's kind of like thinking at the bottom of the pile.
And that would come from the, clean water,
We want to save revolving loan
big
fund,
revolving loan fund.
priority list application that I just finished last week. Wastewater land, this is Site 5 in East Arlington.
They're up in the meadow.
Potentially that,
This,
Off between Andrews Lane and the.
yeah,
And the.
yeah, we shouldn't get into that in
Former
detail
post office.
in open session if we, because, but that's, we're setting aside for that. $15,000 for sprinklers at the park. Lily's here, if anyone has questions on that. I think that's what we broadly agreed to set aside
For the golf course?
for the golf course.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that should be enough to pay for the sprinklers and the install approximately. Does that need to be adjusted in any way?
I still haven't heard from the install guys yet.
Mhm.
But I mean, when Lynn from Saratoga Saga was there, she's like, it'll take them a day and a half to actually put the sprinkler heads in complete. So,
That sounds like a $6,000 job.
yeah, I mean, parts and pieces wise, I mean, the guy tried to sell me, us, the town, I should say, set up so you could run it from yourself, basically. And it wanted 4,000 feet of wire run out through there. And I'm like, it's not what we're here for. I said, I can manually drive around with a golf cart in 10 minutes and have everything done. So we reduced a lot of prices out of that and parts and pieces wise. I think, Jamie, did we look at that? Did we write that down on piece of paper?
Thought it was like 9,000 that you said was the number to work off of. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the materials and all that was 9,000.
Right.
And then
Got it down there,
we
it was like-
added about 6
Yeah,
on top of that.
right. So it'd be probably for parts and pieces. That's the new valves going on to the new tubes, the sprinkler heads themselves. I mean, some holes would probably get 1 to 2 sprinklers on it, might be 3 on the big ones, maybe. There again, this is the article money?
This is our
This is
fund,
our-
yes,
And that's what I'm getting for the park is 15 grand or.
out of ARPA. You've got another pot of money that
Yeah,
we're taking care of.
Right.
the others, some of the other stuff.
Okay, so I know we were talking about maybe someday getting a bigger machine.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's coming out of the other,
Okay.
Yeah, a 70,000 machine is not as far as the way this all adds up. But certainly a larger mower of some sort is definitely coming out of the gift funding from the gift. That's
Well, we know that. It's
That's
the
definitely
smaller-
happening.
The smaller mower. I don't think anybody realizes that maybe Jamie, somebody, 72 inches on a golf course kind of is getting old. It's kind of,
So I have a question. These sprinklers are just at the holes of the golf course, right?
it's green.
Not the green.
On the green,
That's- I
yes.
can think
No,
of it. The greens, not the
Not the
fairways,
fairways.
not the playing fields,
No,
just,
no,
okay.
no,
I just
no.
want to be sure. I just want to be sure.
no, so it'll be nine holes that'll be getting 10, sorry. We probably want to throw one on like the putting green that's there because it's.
Yep.
And, you know, thanks to Mark and Shane and JJ in the last week and a half, we've, changed the park look again. So that'll help with greens growing and all that good stuff. Thank
give
you.
us some of the shading and all that. So
You know, I know that Jamie knows and, you know, I talked a lot about it, you know, what are we putting towards a bigger machine and future of that? Like, how soon?
So there's a couple ideas floating here, but we didn't put them down yet until we see where some of this other stuff lands. Because if some of the stuff comes under, then we can.
So for
go back.
instance, that South Road project, if it comes out and is a loan, that would free up $100,000 in money. Notably, not in here, if you can see this also, is short of $30,000, this last item for firehouse engineering. The fire department is not set to get anything more than that and the hydrants that kind of affect both water and fire. So
And the
spreading this money to every
extrication.
department is going to be a challenge.
Extrication.
Yeah, well, yeah,
And it's-
I know.
it's-
The fire department getting like next to nothing.
So
Am I seeing it right?
they got,
You're exactly right.
Okay,
Like,
it's okay.
No, I understand it, but this is a special pot of money and we're trying to be sure we're using it for things that we can't get done in any other way.
Right.
You certainly need to upgrade the lawnmowers and we know that and we have a process in place. I can't remember if we have a sinking fund to the park.
we do it for emergency
Yeah.
fund, but importantly, this speaks to an important piece of the strategy. The idea of a much larger machine that would have a price tag in that greater than that $70,000 range, as opposed to the the $10,000 to $20,000 that we typically pay for, would be a very different.
That's right. We have not, and that's,
strategy.
and I was gonna say that we have not, excuse me, guys, that I am not aware of any discussion of getting a $70,000 machine for the park. So I'm definitely not putting it in ARPA because I didn't even have it on my radar.
Right.
So we can have that
It's
discussion.
been a thought. We've been,
I know, but I haven't had that talk and I'm not supporting it and I'm not supporting it in ARPA until I understand what the overall strategy is
Right.
and why that would be
Right,
superior.
right. It's just me trying to, you know, maintain the town rule of.
I understand that. I understand that. And I understand that there used to be 2 guys, 3 guys doing them all, now there's just 1. So we need to take that into account. but that's a different discussion. First, we would have to decide on that, and then would come the question of ARPA.
Like I say, we're trying to be as fiscally solvent as we can here in hopes that some of this stuff will be less money and stuff, leave us a bigger pot at the end, and then we can discuss that. So that's kind of where we're leading. So, Nick, can you scroll up further, please?
Well,
Or down,
Go down,
down, sorry.
Move it up.
Yeah.
So,
So what's that stuff about Sunderland?
This is
the ask that we're gonna be going to Sunderland for, out of their ARPA money.
For the, so there's other fire department money
Yes.
in terms of
The
asking from
SCBA
Sunderland.
air
no,
compressor,
notably,
which
none
is
of
a
this is
cascade.
guaranteed at all.
Of course
This is
not, of
preliminary.
course not. But this is something that would benefit their constituents in
Right,
terms
of
of,
We hope that we would be that
We can make that happen.
persuasive.
but you just have no
Um,
idea. You have no
And we
idea.
just had 2 structure fires in Sunderland in 4
Exactly.
days.
Exactly.
Yeah, we hope to get this set up.
Good timing.
We wanted to wait
Yeah.
until after this meeting before we go to Sunderland.
Yeah, you wanna, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, makes perfect sense. And so where is it at the bottom line? What's the bottom line right now? Is all of it theoretically,
So right here is our balance remaining
remaining
that we
balance,
have not
okay.
allocated.
okay,
So that, as we talked with the auditor the other night, putting some money, more money toward water is a possibility. Willie's lawnmower is a possibility. If some of these come in under and we get the loan for the water, that opens up another $100,000 and then
There
that
may
falls
be some
into
further
it.
conversation we need to have as part of executive section, property as part of this before, we finalize that.
what about Bennett Crossing Bridge?
There is nothing in this for that in part because adding new federal springs
Makes no
onto
sense,
that makes no sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I thought, that's what I thought.
Um,
No, that's
and
fine, I
importantly,
just,
Because we don't have certainty of the timing of it.
no,
That's-
I understand that,
Thank
I
you.
understand that.
Um,
Cause this has to
So
go
this
out. to the-
remaining balance number represents not quite 10% of the total ARPA
correct.
award.
Which
That's
is good,
about
cause
our-
that gives you,
Right.
it gives you room for things to,
We've allocated 90% with 10% remaining.
well, we have proposals
We
to
have
allocate,
proposed
we haven't
allocation.
allocated
Right,
it
we
yet.
haven't allocated it yet.
Yes.
This is where we think we will.
And for timing wise, we expect to get, ideally, we want to have 2 to 3 of these items out the door this year. We certainly want to have the sprinklers done. We certainly want to do the
Hydrant and
excavator.
the hydrant.
And we
Hydrants.
certainly want to look at getting the hydrants done as well. Those are 3, we don't want to go much beyond that. Because then
hydrology.
it runs into, we have to spread this out to avoid single audit in all of these years. So timing of some of these ARPA spends are going to be dictated by how much fiscal capacity we have within our federal limit before we trigger the extra special audit.
What about the hydrology? I thought we wanted to do that.
Yeah,
right?
hydrology is out to bid.
It's okay.
Yeah, so it should be about $300,000 in max total spending this year. We can't do it all effectively. But we definitely need to spread it out over a couple of years to make sure we never get that $700,000.
And it isn't just the question of the single audit, it's also our administrative capacity to actually oversee and
We
implement.
can only really
projects.
do 1 day water project per year with the time that we have available for the water.
Yeah.
department, for instance. So, yeah, this is our preliminary, this list and will evolve as we move forward. And we'll have some much more certainty on the hydrology within 1 month. And then we can have some more certainty on things like the excavator, and we can ask her to get pricing on the hydrants sooner rather than later. Get progress on this by the beginning to middle of summer of being able to have the sprinklers project ready to go. And then a couple other things I just mentioned.
So 2 things that we did move out of this was the smaller mower for Willard, the 72-inch new one. And the install for the playground, which are coming from the donation money.
Mhm.
So that, $45,000 came out of that.
$30,000.
30,000, excuse me. Sorry.
So what do we need to do at this meeting? Do we need to sort of have an approval, so far so good kind of thing? Do we need a motion? Do we need,
There is no motion.
can't
This
really
is
make a
a
motion
allow-
to-
the motions would be particular
You
projects.
and I really need to catch up with Sunderland at this point.
Yep.
now.
Okay,
That's
okay.
kind of our next.
But I'm gonna, I mean, I think
There's
this
no
looks
action
like,
to be taken.
I know,
on
that's
this
what I'm
at this point.
asking,
Yep.
that's what I'm asking, so, but I think this looks like, a way to continue, and I really, really appreciate seeing this all together, because it was like pretty fragmented in my head, so I really appreciate this, and I appreciate you guys meeting and all the work to pull this together, thank you.
That'd be our next step, right? would be
Our
to-
next step is to go and see Sunderland.
Yeah,
See what
makes
we can
sense.
do.
Yeah.
Perfect sense.
And so the meeting with Sunderland, is ARPA funds.
I think they had a
There's
meeting
no
last
one
night.
being.
We'll be meeting with the liaison first before we go to the full board. So
Right.
we board set up a meeting with the ARPA lead over there.
Okay,
So I got the name up. So
and there's nothing in the works as far as, this, their,
they have a bunch of
They decided
projects.
they wanted to do something, go a different direction, right?
They definitely have a bunch of projects that they want to do. There's certainly asks of them. The fire department is not the only thing they're going to be asked to support, but
Mhm.
certainly we will have a powerful ask versus some of their other secondary projects.
Okay.
We know they have a primary project they definitely want to get done, of adding a social space to their town hall alongside their rewiring work that they already got done at the town hall, and having a nice Zoom system like we have. We definitely put a bunch of time into helping them get to that point. So, we'll report back after we set up the meeting. So, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. So that, concludes the ARPA discussion. The next thing on the agenda is the revised personnel policy for 2024, and that's here if anybody.
So it's in your report, it was in your agenda packet. The one tweak was I added the language about Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples' Day to acknowledge both the federal and the state holiday in the language. So that was just a minor edit, per Dan's request. But beyond that, it implements everything the board asked to draft up last meeting. So we will need a motion to approve that. And it should we give a briefing on that about the amended policy adds 3 new holidays to the
Yes.
calendar. That is
Summary
Juneteenth,
changes.
Juneteenth in the middle of June, the Bennington Battle Day in the middle of August, and the day after Thanksgiving in the middle or at the end of November. So that is the addition improvement to the personnel policy.
Other than that, there's no change.
There's one other change with regard to the use of town equipment. So I would love the board to speak on that.
I have some questions
Yeah.
about it that should probably be done in executive session.
Perfect. So so if we want to table that until after the executive session, the final approval, we can do that.
Okay.
And short of my report, we can hold the rest of the items until after the executive session.
Well,
Sounds
I
like,
just had one thing that I wanted to mention. So I did, I did a little more work on the water department audit, and I met with, Burr Snow, and he thinks that there are a number of projects that could be developed, either already are developed or could be developed quickly. And if we could put them in the pipeline and get funding for them, we could implement these improvement projects, and that would go towards offsetting that depreciation, because we haven't had those projects. And Burr reminded me that when we purchased the water company, not only did we plan to do the Route 7 work, which was done,
Mhm.
but we also actually originally planned to do the 313 work
Yep.
and Chiselville Drive. Is it Drive? Chiselville, anyway, Chiselville Drive. No, I thought it was down along Chiselville.
Road.
But the problem was that at that point, 2016, 2017, like every company in the state, everybody was busy. We couldn't get anybody interested. The costs were high. Of course, they're higher now, but the costs were high. We couldn't get somebody to do the work. So we borrowed the money, we did that part of the work, either the money wouldn't go any further or we couldn't get anybody to do it. And I don't remember which, we probably could go back and look. So, but Burr's point was that if we had then, and I think after that, there were problems with, the financing, and then this question about the South Road, well, and the piping came up, and we couldn't really move forward. The state didn't want us to move forward with those things. I'm not totally sure about that, but Burr's point was just that if we had moved forward with the 313 project, which is a big project, the Chisholville project, which is a smaller project, those would have offset that financial depreciation because there would have been investments, and we never moved forward with those. Those projects are fully specified. They would have to be updated. If there are any changes in regulations, they have to be re-estimated because of cost. But in terms of the engineering, those projects are specified. So I think we should think about which of those we would want to go forward with first, based on their condition and everything like that. And then the other thing that Burr said is that there are 4 river or stream crossings where pipes of the water companies go through the river. And I know that there are 2 on the Battenkill, one that goes down, along 313, and one that comes from the Red Mountain Sprig, which we aren't using, but there's still a pipe going under the river. The other 2, I think, must be Fayetteville. And so those river crossings are pipes going through the riverbed, and they're very challenging for him because if there's a leak in one of them, you're not going to see water on the ground because it's in the river. And we actually had that. There was a leak in the Battenkill one, and he was like losing 400,000 gallons a day. And he was like, where is it? So to replace those pipes would be really, really good in terms of the safety and integrity of the water system, and in terms of helping to offset the depreciation issue. And those might be much smaller and easier to finance, but they're not specified. So I think the board should ask Burr we got to locate the old plans for those other projects and then draw up some plans or start drawing them up. We probably need engineers to help even with the river crossing. I don't know. Because those might be relatively easy. And then we can start on these sort of backlog of improvements, which ought to be done for their own sake. But now we have this additional incentive of we need to make the books look better by doing the investments we should have been doing all along. And at some point in a couple of years, we may have to do the rate increase again, because we just did it 2 years ago, depending on the financing, depending on the next round of infrastructure. So I just thought that because there was a lot of discussion at the last meeting of that audit, I just wanted to, report back to the board that was what Burr's thinking about. And I think we should think if we want to give him any different direction. I mean, if you guys have any different ideas. But I thought that sounded hopeful.
It would definitely be very good to have a full list of every possible project the water department might want to undertake over the next, say, 5 to 10 years. We already have some of that planning in a book that's sitting in my office in the capital plan. I would love to sit down with any member who's interested in that and review that, or have reviewing that as part of the agenda for one of the coming water department meetings. But we should certainly use a resource that we have, which is the existing water department capital. I would
really like to get a better understanding.
I'm happy to look at that with you when you get a chance.
We'll be in touch. I'll be in touch. So, okay, so I just wanted to mention that.
The idea of doing it at the next water board meeting is really good.
Okay, so maybe you can.
I know, but if I could meet with Nick and get a better understanding, then it would help me participate better. So
that'd be very helpful.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to
increase our efficiency as well.
Absolutely. So we'll hold everything else until after the executive session, and if you want to make our motions.
So it'll be for personnel. Okay.
I make a motion that premature discussion of a personnel issue would cause the municipality to suffer substantial disadvantage.
Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Glenn to establish a reason for the executive session as a personnel matter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
I make a further motion to actually enter into the executive session for discussion of said personnel issues and to allow town administrator Nick Zias to remain in the room. Does anybody else need to
I don't.
be with him?
I
Okay,
don't think so.
okay, to allow town administrator Nick Zias to remain in the room with the board.
Motion made by Cynthia and second by Glenn.
Yeah.
To enter into executive session for personnel matter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Recording stopped.
Wait, oh, wait, here, let's have a meeting, the, main room downstairs is available. Waiting, we'll ask that anyone head down there.
Okay.
Okay, so highlights from last meeting, we finalized the budget. We started all this water department RFP effort that involved a lot of work. Kelly and I had met about the park planning. Jamie and Glenn and I met about the ARC planning, and then the telephone transition is almost, I will say, I will knock on some wood on that, completely done. But the phones are back up and everything's good to go. We just need to finish the voicemail, the email piece of that. So that's a whole bunch of stuff for 2 weeks. And then there's some other grant stuff that was all summarized in your packets, including the fact that we were awarded the $8,000 in Ash for funding for the Buck Hill project. So yay. And I just got notice that we were also awarded funding to work with BCRC on the hazard mitigation grant to update our local emergency plan this year. So, or our local hazard mitigation plan, pardon me, the other one. And so we'll be doing that. So yay, 2 grants, all kinds of other stuff. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can move to warrants and orders.
Before we do warrants and orders, up above, we moved to after the executive session, the appointment of Nick as the deputy town health officer.
Perfect.
We have a letter here from the, I guess it is addressed to me, but it's from Meg McCarthy, the compliance and enforcement advisor from the Department of Health.
It just came in today.
It came in today, so basically all we have to do is I have to sign it.
You just need a motion to approve,
Need a motion to approve Nick as the deputy. It is deputy, right?
Yeah, it is deputy and it is.
Deputy Town Health Officer recommendation form. They actually do the appointment upstate, similar to the fire warden. So I just need a motion to approve this to sign it, and I will be the one signing it.
I make a motion to approve the recommendation of Town Administrator Nick Zayas as the town
Deputy Town Health
deputy
Officer.
town health officer.
Second,
Motion is made by Cynthia and seconded by Nick Todd.
yes,
Second by Todd to appoint Nick as the deputy town health officer. So we are putting this through on the recommendation form, and the state will do the actual appointment. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Just as a point of order, do we actually need a motion to table the personnel policy to next
Yes.
meeting?
I would.
So I'll make a motion to table personnel policy 2024 revisions to the next meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Todd and seconded by Glenn to table the personnel policies until the next meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Then I guess, is there any other business we brought before the board?
I have none.
Okay. If not, the only remaining business is the warrants and order.
Okay, before I start the first warrant, I have a question about it. It says that it's the unpaid invoices between February 2nd and February 5th. That strikes me as odd.
I'm confused as to why it would be the case, but it's for the period ending February 5th.
Yeah, that's how you have to put it in NEMRIC. Like you have
Okay.
to pick a date and you start with that date, and then that's how it signals out that is this warrant. So I started on the 2nd and I put them all in through for this warrant.
Okay, so I just never noticed it before. Good
Yeah,
one.
it's always like a designated time frame because you have to keep this separate from every other transaction going on.
Okay, so you act like the invoices all are sort of activated during that
Yes.
time frame. Okay.
Yeah, it's everything that's being paid for the past 2 weeks from the
But
previous
yeah.
meeting. But we
Okay,
have to zero it in for NEMRIC, or it'll
Okay.
pick up things that happened long ago. that
okay,
we don't
okay,
want to
I
be
got
on
it,
here.
I got it, I got
That's
it.
very helpful.
That was beautiful.
Thank you, Jen.
Janet. Thank you.
Well,
Okay, so for, this is the water department, I'm gonna make a motion to approve of check warrant report number WD3 for the Arlington Water Department dated February 2nd, 2024. And the total amount is $413.25. Obviously, nothing particularly large.
Second. Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Jamie to approve check warrant report WD three, with a total amount of $413.25. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, just the regular order.
Okay, I make a motion to approve check warrant report number 3 dated February 2nd for the town of Arlington General Fund expenses. Key items are salt for $5,819. Fire department new equipment, 2,701. Miles fuel, 7,215 for oil and diesel and things like that. Sand and stone from Peckham for 5,179 and so forth. Motion to approve payment of invoice totaling $34,446.25.
Second. Ironically, they both ended 25 seconds.
That's a sign.
Oh, you seconded by Jamie?
I did.
Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Jamie to approve check warrant report number 3, a total amount of $34,446.25. All those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
aye. Aye. Motion carried. Thing covers everything. On the.
Dan.
Yeah.
I think Willie wanted to discuss the
Okay,
playground
all right.
location and
Now is the time.
all that good stuff. It's here tomorrow for.
Well, we had, Nick and I met the other day, Thursday, and we looked at locations and, you know, we're thinking about the Lions Field, to the north of the pavilion, and then we thought about the direction of going where the old volleyball court, is. Now, we had talked to,
John
We
came.
talked to Jim
John
Henderson.
Campbell.
Jim Henderson, then it went to the next
He
guy.
put us to, I got his name.
John Campbell.
John Campbell.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we talked to him and said, you know, Jim had put us in touch with this guy and, you know,
Jim Henderson.
Jim Henderson, yes, put us in touch with this guy. And we talked to the fella and he said there should be no issue. Floodplain, flood water. That's plain on that side of the river.
It's floodway as volleyball course floodplain on the Lions Field. But yes,
Okay, so, we, and I came back and we discussed,
He at least said to me on the phone that no matter,
Where is it now?
it really didn't matter to him where it can put in. Because it wasn't a structure here though. It was a, playground equipment that was going to be anchored.
so after we discussed, then you showed me,
This is.
so, you know, you didn't want to show Todd and Jamie that in the zoning, but if,
There's
you know, the zoning is.
I don't see the race as wiggle.
But there's a difference between a structure and a flowable, unit, and water can flow through. A playground set, it's not a full four-sided building. And I don't see where it is, you know, a hard ask to ask the zoning board. I mean, it's a playground set. We don't have to put permits out for playground sets in the back of dooryards that are on the batting field, right?
I know we do. That's actually something that legally, according to our bylaw, but I'm not saying that this is not something we can ask for, but because of the attestations that are associated with this, and that while something is legal at the state level, does not mean that the Arlington Planning Commission has not gone further than that, which they specifically and deliberately did. The Arlington Planning Commission in the town Arlington zoning bylaw is was very specific with its intent on this, that the floodway is, they want nothing in the floodway, and they define any structure as any assembly of materials for occupancy or use. So, and then they explicitly go on to ban both primary and accessory structures in the floodway. So to explain the logic of this, the Arlington Planning Commission, or in some case, what some may feel as, and I certainly expressed at the time, as what may be overblown fears associated with Hurricane Irene and the damage that they're from, it went so far as to go further than the minimum that state law requires to go to ban anything and that is placed in the floodway. That is why I've been very clear about this, that having been in the room when the planning commission was for 2 sessions, sat and talked about all of this. The minutes of the planning commission reflect very clearly that they wrote this very deliberately. In the same way the town of Shasbury was very deliberate in their decision to not enact solar siting, and then they came back to regret that after the Shasbury solar matter popped up. This is something that the planning commission wasn't thinking specifically about, but they were thinking very generally on that they want to maximally prevent things being placed, any structure, including things as small as wooden posts being placed into the floodway. So
So what you're saying is if the town wants to proceed with it at the volleyball, we have to apply for a permit from our zoning.
no, we would have to seek the planning commission to change the bylaw before we can, because we have to attest as part of the application process that we are not proposing to place a new structure into the floodway very specifically. And that is something that on its face is going to happen as part of this. It is something that we can advance and we can design out a playground that does this, but on a plain reading of this, they would be paying to successfully give us this kind of permit because because the planning commission was very specific and they put these rules as tight as they can be to specifically ban this kind of thing. So
I think it's worth the conversation.
I think it's something that if the board feels that should be the case, I'm happy to design this. And
Don't we already have a design done?
we have a design at the other site, but we can certainly transpose that onto that other
And
site.
the other side is in the floodway too.
as well.
It was, and that was previously permitted.
Right.
But in this case, yes, if we want to do this, if we think that they can do this, I would like it to be, I will complete the permitting application, and I would like the board itself to approve this as opposed to being signed off on by me, the town administrator, is the one ask.
The board should be doing that.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that, because rather than it being sent to the board for me to file the application, quote unquote.
We're not gonna ask you to do that.
Okay, I very much appreciate that, given the risk involved of attesting to something that I think is a plain reading that doesn't make sense. But I very much appreciate that opportunity, and I will prepare the documentation. Hopefully, we will have it for the next meeting. I will try to have it for the next meeting if things don't get too busy.
So as liaison for the park, I will reach out to the planning commission and zoning board and talk with them about the.
No,
proposal.
I don't-
We can't do that. That's
We can't do
excellent.
that.
Okay,
We have to prepare an
The
application.
only thing
Okay.
they cannot talk to a potential applicant about an issue. And during the application, you cannot talk to them outside of the meeting.
okay.
And we can't do that. So,
Yeah.
so now if we were replacing the old playground with the new equipment, which is what we were originally planning, we wouldn't need to get a permit because we're just replacing what's already there.
Importantly-
Could you let me finish? We're just replacing what's already there. So we didn't really need a permit then,
That's
but
not-
we have these, go ahead.
That was not the case. The bylaw was different and more lenient back then.
At that-
at the time, we were able to have those kind of limited additions. The bylaw has changed, it has been tightened
Since we first
since
proposed
we first
changing.
proposed it. So,
All right,
that is why.
got it, got it.
It will be
Got it.
prepared and my hope is to have it ready for you with all of these fully detailed with measurements and things like that, drawings at the volleyball court site. And if we have that denied, we will go to the alternative site. And then deal with all the other complications that come from that site. So that makes sense. We will be prepared to have that to you for approval at our next meeting.
Quick question there.
Yes.
How, big of a ask is it for us to ask the planning commission to revisit this statute?
It's a mile.
It's the bylaw, we would probably not be able to install this season, because if it ends with the bylaws revised and we still have to get a permit because it's still in the floodplain, that's still a 2-month lag on getting the permits.
Is the old
It's about a
original
3 months to get the edits
in the
through.
same area as the preferred one?
Yes, the old one is, it would be no more non-compliant in a meaningful way at the new site than the old site. So,
Okay,
yeah, that is, we have some way.
With the rest of the other playground equipment. Or,
Yeah, from where the current equipment is to the volleyball court site is no change in regulatory status. There is a change in regulatory status if you place it on the Lions Field that gets you out of the floodplain into the floodway, which can be Plan B if the planning commission rejects this on its face, as it could do.
And because of the change in the statute, even replacing the existing playground equipment at the same site requires a permit.
Installing the new equipment would end up getting into that world. So certainly we should be seeking to move it no matter what, because this at least gives us some more flexibility.
I would argue the elevation of the volleyball court's higher than the others, but
It probably is. It should be. The floodway does not discern between
Correct.
1 foot or 2 feet. So
I mean, I don't know
It is
what
right
Willie's
next.
experience is. That's right next to a creek. It's gonna be part of the floodway in a flood. It's gonna be moving, the floodway is moving water, not just ponding water,
right.
moving water. That has to be part of moving water. So it has to be,
Park was moving water. and
right, except maybe
So I've
the,
seen 2 floods in less than 6 months. And that creek came up 10 inches max.
Cause that really, the only water that feeds that little creek is what comes out of the
Yeah.
pond.
it
I
would,
think that in Tropical Storm Irene, it was otherwise.
it would take a
Oh,
catastrophic
park
flood
is
event
underwater.
to be of Irene's scale to put that area underwater, which realistically, as a user, I would love this to be very, that's the correct spot. As a person, that is by far the best spot for the place,
Where the volleyball.
where the volleyball courts are.
And I think that's the consensus.
Yeah, it's absolutely the consensus among everyone in this room, I believe, that is an
I'm pretty sure.
ideal spot for playground. But
Especially given the issues today with supervision of small children
absolutely,
and what can happen.
In the blink of an
We're
eye.
moving structures further away from the mat.
Yeah,
no, this is definitely gonna be less non-compliant than the current area. So, yeah, if they had chosen not to overreact, we would be in, we probably already.
Well, I don't think
So-
they were thinking about
Yeah,
this
kind of thing.
no, they
situation.
certainly won't.
I also think, I think that, it sounds like if we want to do anything, we have to get a permit, or else we have to pursue a change in the ordinance. The only thing that bothers me about that is it's like the town, we adopted this ordinance and then we found it constrained us. So we're like, okay, we're gonna change it, you know? And I think there would be a lot of private landowners who would be like, yeah, nice if you could do that. I mean, it's a playground, that's what it is. But, I just think we should, think about what kind of modification we would want, because I think that overall, the planning commission is on the right track to limit activities in the floodway and in the floodplain, and require anchoring and all that other kind of stuff, but either putting them back where it is or moving it to a better place really makes a lot of sense. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know.
Nick, correct me if I'm wrong. So if, say you wanted to replace a piece of playground equipment that's existing right now, today, in where it is right now?
1-to-1,
Yes.
1-to-1 is legal.
In other words, if you have an old slide and you replace it with a new slide.
Because I was
right,
just
same
gonna
place.
say, what
Right.
about the posts that are gonna go in the golf course, you know, that
Yeah.
designate the holes?
Yeah,
You know,
that's replacing something that's exact.
right, that's why I asked, you know.
But yes, that's exactly the kind of these little ticky-tacky things that under the previous bylaw, those posts wouldn't have been regulated at all.
Mhm.
But the plan commission on having a particular incident that involved litigation and posts in the floodway, they were certainly, their opinion was certainly well understood to be of people who had gone through an incident just like that took litigation to sort out that according to the courts that those posts were did end up constituting structure for the purposes of that particular case. But in any case, putting ourselves in the heads of the planning commission when they were drafting it is not something we need to be doing, but ultimately.
And the thing is, whenever you draft ordinance and ordinance
Yeah.
changes, you often have unexpected
Yeah.
consequences.
Yep.
And I don't think
Yeah.
that anybody would.
Yeah,
have
we didn't
thought it
think
was-
about this when we were rewriting the bylaw. For instance, in a place where we did think about this kind of thing, the Dietrich site was initially set to have public safety facilities banned from the 500-year floodplain in which that property sits. That would have derailed all kinds of things for us in the future. That was a choice that we ran by John Burker Campbell. He said it was not required in state law, and we chose not to regulate it on something that I fought to make sure that was the case because we knew that this was already being considered for a firehouse. So yeah, 500-year floodplain, that's the first I've ever encountered it, but it only applies, I guess, to public safety facilities and regulation typically. So in any case, yeah, if we had foreseen this, maybe we could have had them carve out playground structure.
And the only reason this, you know, why we've talked so heavily about the volleyball spot is safety. I think safety is the biggest
Although
concern.
I would also say that if a parent is watching the game, even if their kid is on the volleyball court, and there's just the one parent and they're watching the game, they're not watching the kid. I
Well,
mean, you know, it's like if your kids are gonna come.
Multiple parents are observing.
Okay, I just don't want anybody to have
So
false
it's not near a
confidence. You know,
road
it's
where
like-
so we
somebody
can-
grab and
We can,
go.
we can revisit this when we are approving the permit at that next meeting. But yeah, it shouldn't take, given that
I
we're,
mean, nobody should be sending kids to the
Yeah.
playground to play and not having a parent nearby. If you do that,
Some-
it's gonna have to be a
Well, they
problem.
send them out with a little older sibling while another one is playing on the field. And next thing you know, then one comes back and where's,
so
And to go
Or somebody
over by the
falls.
Lions, they gotta, you know, the kids aren't gonna walk around the parking lot, they're gonna
no,
walk
going
through the park.
park.
If they go to the existing playground,
And Dutch
you're right
Lane is
next
on
to
the
the
other side
pond.
of it.
no, this is a
You know,
safer
it's-
spot all across the board. Jamie, would you be willing to be the person to review this plan before I put it up to the
Absolutely.
board? I would really
Absolutely.
appreciate that. Thank you. So I'll,
I think that's what everybody is saying, is this is a safer location.
yeah, if we can get it through permitting, it's 100% the ideal location. I look forward to having my kid playing there. And it will absolutely be a better location than either of the alternatives.
And the golfing is going away from it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Other
will
side of the
not,
street.
it would take a ball coming across that creek and traveling.
I know, but
along.
people are hitting in the other direction. I think
Yes.
they're
Yeah,
going-
they're going down,
Yeah.
Yeah,
away from it.
it would take a really errant shot of
Yeah,
any.
but if you had a golfer like me, you could
I
hit
wasn't
somebody,
going
you
there,
could hit
but
somebody
since
on the
you-
soccer field.
Since you brought it up.
Willie's not interested in replacing your debits.
No?
I promise you guys, I will never play golf on this field or on this course to avoid this.
As
But,
long as you don't tee off on the green.
Okay, we'll have this-
More open.
we'll have this permit for you. And just so I'm on, for the one last detail to confirm on this while we're designing it up. So realistically, we probably want to leave is the plan to leave the existing play structures in place and then install all the new equipment at this location? Or are we seeking to move the existing structures as part of this?
How many pieces would we be moving?
It would be, it would be 2 if it's the play structures, 3 if it includes the swing that includes the young child and disabled, or 4 if it's those 3 plus the tire swing. So we could
My
leave,
personal opinion is it makes sense to have it all in one location.
I agree.
If we're paying to have it installed, let's do
And
it
there's
once.
room.
And there's
If
room.
there's room, but.
Willie and I will
would
go,
all
we'll,
over again.
we'll play around with arts and crafts and design something
Yeah,
again.
I want a little mock-up, you know. like a little-
We have a mock-up right over here.
Three-dimensional?
Oh, no.
No, that's just two-dimensional.
Two-dimensional with
Alright.
You're not painting your little
Oh,
blueprint.
oh, it's got little.
Oh, yeah, he was,
cut and
oh,
paste.
get reading. We, let's see,
Oh,
it was
I
like
see.
this,
Okay.
it was the initial plan.
Colored in.
I want a little shoebox, you know, little.
It's-
It's the best I can do on realizing that, oh crap, we need to be able to move things around, it's easier
No,
on
that's
a
good,
on paper
that's
than a
good.
computer.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'll get that drafted up and we'll have it to you next week.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, we'll to adjourn before we head out without
I
it.
think we're all set.
I think
Anything
we have a
else?
plan.
Oh, I think you
Would you like a
need- that
motion?
would really-
I would like a motion to adjourn. Would you like to make one?
That's
So
all-
moved.
that's all?
Second.
Motion made by Todd to adjourn
What's
and
that?
seconded by Glenn. We're adjourned.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
Janet.
We will see everyone in 3 weeks from tonight.